Bem, nós vamos conversar agora com a professora Renee Hobbs, professora da Universidade de Rhode Island, que é criadora do Media Education Lab, e falou hoje para a gente sobre a necessidade de uma nova e contínua alfabetização para a mídia, aí, diante da constante evolução, né, desse assunto importante para a gente debater aqui nos Estados Unidos e em outras partes do mundo. Teacher, thank you very much for this interview. The first question is, fear stimulates misinformation. How can we challenge this kind of thing?
Fear is such a ordinary part of our lives these days that sometimes we aren't even fully aware of it. You know, the TV shows and the movies that I watch, horror movies and crime movies, and fear is exciting.
Real stories of crimes, for example.
Police dramas.
Documentaries.
It is endless. We take pleasure in feeling fear. But this also means that our anxiety can be intensified when real events happen that induce fear. And journalism and news brings us news about tragedy and about disaster. And this can make people feel that the world is a mean and scary place. And when we feel that way, we stop trusting each other. So the only way forward is to find networks of trust. Maybe it's a trusted broadcaster, right? Maybe it's a trusted neighbor or family member, or it might even be an expert. Sometimes it's an influencer who delivers ideas in a way that feels trustworthy. So learning to notice how you decide what to trust and who to trust is a really important part of media education.
You say something in your explanation that you should, not only today but in other conferences, that you should take action in this ambience. How can we take action?
The most important thing is to have courageous conversations. Today, because of echo chambers, we are surrounded by people who all think like we do. Our friends and family.
A bubble.
Often we live in a little bubble of people who we agree with and they agree with us. But for us to depolarize society, we must get practice in talking to and in listening to people whose views are different than ours, and not trying to persuade, not trying to debate, just trying to understand. This is the first step to the kind of civic education that promotes peace and democratic problem solving.
You said confronting a world of extremists. We have similarities between US and Brazil. Politics, extremists. How can we do that?
Today I invited the audience to imagine the world from the point of view of the extremist. Extremists seek radical social change.
Fear.
I identify with some extremists. They see the profound inequalities, the structural racism. They see why some people have so much and some people have so little. They want to do something about it. When extremism can be productive for social change, but it can become disastrous for social change when it turns into violence, when it puts one group as the in group and the other group as the out group, and it enables that people have distorted thinking like they need to hurt the other group.
They are my enemy.
That's where we're in trouble, and we have to resist that impulse every way we can.
The role of media and technology in amplifying hate. We do this every day, for example.
Yeah. So I think most people are not aware of how much the media industry is selling fear and is promoting hate. And part of that is the job in journalism, your job is to report on the bad things that happen.
Yeah.
So strong feelings are going to be part of it. But what most of us are unaware of is the way in which the platforms are designed to monetize our anger, our resentment, our feelings of humiliation, our being left out, excluded. So we're not fully aware of how the business model of digital platforms wants us to be angry, wants us to hate. And that's an important thing to understand, because this is a structural problem with the technology industry itself.
The power of algorithm, that's it. One of the things.
It's huge, and it works in such ways that are hard for us to see. There's no transparency. We don't know how it is. Why do I keep getting, I am a grieving mother, why do I keep getting more Facebook and Instagram messages about grieving mothers and sad mothers? Well, it's giving me more of what it thinks I want, right? And that spiral can be very dangerous in terms of people's anxiety and their depression, and it can limit their exposure to more messages that are more nuanced and more hopeful.
Another subject that you said today is courageous communications. How parents, teachers can have courageous communications with children, students, and society in general.
Today I asked the audience to talk to their next door neighbor to answer this question. Are there any false and distorted stereotypes about other Brazilians? You know, the ones in Bahia, the ones in Salvador, the ones in Manaus, the ones in Rio. Are there any false and distorted stereotypes that we have of each other that we need to correct? That is a hard topic to talk about, because stereotypes have a little bit of truth in them and a lot of falsehood. So to have a courageous conversation means to confront the stereotypes that limit our thinking about the humanity of others.
The subject, media literacy as a violence prevention. You said that a little bit, but I'd like to explain a little bit more.
Many Brazilians are not aware that the media education movement in the United States started with a focus on violence prevention. It was a Catholic nun, Sister Elizabeth Tolman. She was so aware of how media violence in movies, in TV shows, everywhere it seemed there was violence, and it was getting more and more, the violence was more and more bloody and sensational. She said, we need to understand and resist the appeal of violence in the media. And we have to break the cycle of blame, where one group blames the other and the other group blames the other. Her pioneering work in media education is now coming to be seen as even more relevant 50 years after she first imagined it.
It's our third time in Brazil.
Oh, 6 or 7.
6, 7, okay. What do you know about social media education in Brazil? What are you learning from media education in Brazil these days?
Today's conference was groundbreaking, simply groundbreaking. Today I understood with much more awareness the way in which the activists working in media education at the local level, the teachers in schools, the after-school programs, the youth media programs, the way those folks are now being supported at the state level, at the federal level, at the ministerial level. This puts Brazil way ahead of almost every other country in the world. This conference will be a historical event, a milestone for Brazil in media education, and it means that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, people around the world will look to Brazil as a leader. The Brazilians are imagining a whole of society approach to media education, school and out of school, parents, children, grandparents, business people, healthcare workers, even the media industry, because it will take a whole of society approach to bring media education to this complex, diverse, and very large country.
Yeah, like US. How can US model of education, media education, can teach us these days? The model implemented in the US that you are implementing, like educators, like civil society in general. What this model can teach us in terms of next steps, for example?
I am very proud that so many of my students and former students are here today. Many Brazilians have come to the United States to study with me, and I see my students and former students all around. Two big ideas will come from the United States and will move Brazilian media education forward. One already happens in journalism education, where students create media as a way to learn how media work. Because once you've created media, now you know all the decisions, all the careful thought, all the strategy behind every choice. This is very important. And the other thing is, well, you saw me do it today. Turn and talk. We professors, blah, 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 right? We experts, we talk. But it turns out that people learn media education best when they talk. So classrooms that are filled with students talking, that builds media literacy competencies. When I walk into a classroom and see only the professor talking, I know not much learning is happening.
Well, Renee, thank you very much for your interview. Thank you very much for this conversation. Bem, essa foi a Renee Hobbs, que é professora da Universidade de Rhode Island, criadora do Media Education Lab, que está aqui hoje em São Paulo, conversando, palestrando, né, discutindo a inclusão, a necessidade da inclusão da educação midiática dentro das escolas de uma maneira geral. Você quer acessar mais conteúdos no SBT News? Só clicar aqui para ver outras entrevistas relacionadas a esse tema.